So to start off today, we have Dr. Ripley. She's the professor of psychology, the Hughes Endowed Chair, and co-director of the Charis Institute at Regent University. She's really great, just from personal experience. She's the first person from Regent I have ever met. She was the first face, sort of the one who convinced me to join the PsyD program. And then she's taught the statistics class I was in. She's overall just a great person in general, great clinician, really has a heart to serve the Lord and the people around her. So without further ado, we have Dr. Ripley here.
Thanks. That was the best introduction I've ever had. No, seriously, I love the students here at Regent, and especially for the students that are here. There aren't many students here, but today is the last day of the year for them. They have, really give them a round of applause because they have survived an entire year of the program, and we've all been through doctoral training here, or most of us, and we know how hard that is. So the fact that they still had a little bit of fumes to sit here for today and learn something more, you guys are rock stars for it. So I am Jen Ripley, and I am working with Jim Sells at the Charis Institute. We actually have 4 projects that have been ongoing for us. The first one we have done for many years is the Hope Focused Couple Counseling Lab at Regent University. I am very short compared to this. I might just kind of stand. I'm going to pull it down just a little, like that. Okay. But also, it's got to look hilarious from you.
You stand up there and all.
Okay. They need to take care of me. Thank you. All right. Just, 5'3" is the way God made me. So I can't help it. But the Hope Project is the first project that we've been doing for 15 years there, inspired by Ev Worthington there in the back row, who created the Hope Focused approach to couple counseling, and we've seen over 500 couples in our clinic here on campus that in some way have intersected with us and hopefully been improved by that, and our data says they have as a group. A second project is Grace and Hope for Marriages that Jim and I created for churches. This is the third project I'll be talking about today. I call this our missionary work. This is essentially us going out into the larger field to persuade folks that religion and spirituality is a thing. And it's something that people care a lot about. I was struck yesterday when Tyler was speaking about religion and spirituality was rated second by patients in a hospital setting, but 7th out of 7 by physicians. And I think that's very similar in mental health care as well. So I think that's really part of the inspiration for this project. And we're, just to let you know, a little commercial before I play a commercial in a minute, is that we're on to a new project that we just started in the last few months, and somewhat inspired, at least partially highly shaped by a certain Al Gomez, who is Doris Gomez's husband, who's a priest right over here, who we sat down with and talked to about the mental health needs of the church that were coming in to their beautiful Anglican church that they lead, and all of that's going on, and how can we be a part of making that more effective. And so the Church Cares was born this year, and we're spending a lot of energy on that now. So I'm talking to you about something that is coming to a close as a larger project, although the material still exists. So this is me and Dr. Sells, Dr. Kent, who's in the counseling program, and 3 top-notch students that have worked heavily with this on it. And, it's working. Good. Okay. This is your CE objectives if you're getting CE. And I like to start with just a bit of a story for you. This is Rembrandt's work here on the left, Christ in the Sea of Galilee. You can hardly see it, but way down here is Christ, surrounded by a lot of dark. It's a little bit of light that Rembrandt put there. If we could see it live, we would be able to see what's happening there. And I had a moment in my life when my faith was getting a little cooled, a little roped, a little just normal. And COVID hit, and a few other things happened in my life. And I sat down with the spiritual director, actually in a group setting from the Renovari Ministry. And she walked us through this painting and had us really thinking about who are we in the midst of the storms? What character do we play, right? And hard to see, but there were some people kind of down there with Jesus saying, "What are you doing? Wake up!" There's one guy down here you can hardly see who's like throwing up over the edge of it, right? There's a bunch of people here trying to make things work. I decided I was this guy right here. This is like, I'm holding it together. It's gonna happen. I'm gonna be all right. I'll get back on the mic, I know. But it was very moving, and I found that I kept returning to this as a space to reach past the intellectual into the emotional experiences of God. That God is right there. Like he is trying to hold the mass together, and the Lord of the universe is right there, always present and available, and it can just turn around and take his hand and hold it, and it will be okay. I also thought that this is a really interesting piece historically, because as I got interested in it, I learned more about it. This piece was actually stolen out of a museum in Boston in the early 90s. And just very recently, they figured out who it was that stole it. But the piece is lost, and they don't think they're going to be able to recover it. And I think there's a little bit of a... There's just a meaning there in our culture. How much is the faith lost? How much of understanding of religion and spirituality is a lost thing, particularly in mental health fields. So that's where we're going to start. This is our team, really wonderful. And we have a website, familycars.org, and it's out there, and you can access all our stuff for free there that I'm going to be talking about. But what we're doing is training people in mental health fields on how to address religion and spirituality, and particularly in relationships. This is a little different than what Ken Pargament does, or Michelle Pierce, or some of them have great curriculum and materials. But this one is embedded in relationships. So what we learned from this, to take away, technology is good. We did everything online, right? Technology is a good thing, and it worked. Interest is high. When I took this project on, I told Jim, I was like, okay, we told the funder, so we give credit John Templeton Foundation and all that they did to help fund this project, that we would get like 100 people, maybe 150, that kind of range. And I'm like, oh man, we're asking people to do a 5-hour training on Zoom, and everyone's tired of the internet now. If we get 50, I'll be happy. These are my fears. That's not what happened. You'll see how many we got. The interest is high, and the need is real. So these are things I've learned. This is a little bit of our website, and I believe I now have someone to assist to play a little bit of a commercial, so you can see what it is that we did.
There is a rule in polite society. We are never to talk about religion or politics at dinner.
And that rule seems to have been applied to therapy as well.
This set of training videos is designed to break that rule. We'll learn to talk about religion and spirituality in therapy and still be polite.
Family systems theories are packed with great ideas to help us make use of the religious and spiritual values and use those traditions in couple and family therapy.
These videos help you develop ethical competencies in the use of religion and spiritual interventions in couple and family therapy.
Mm-hmm. And our curriculum is called Family CARS. That stands for Competency in Addressing Religion and Spirituality for Families. And it is made possible through a Templeton Foundation research grant.
Imagine you have a new case of a young couple. Both partners are Buddhist and heavily involved in yoga and meditative prayer. The couple is second generation Malaysian, living in a large city in the USA and working in a family business. They requested couple therapy to assist with adjustments with their 5-year-old daughter, who is newly diagnosed with autism. The couple would like to use their prayer, meditation, and yoga practices to help them cope with the stress of parenting and be more accepting of the diagnosis. Let's see how this couple is addressing the problems of parenting.
I'm anxious about how we are going to parent Sanjana now. I mean, I was already nervous about becoming a parent and keeping up the business. Now, I just think we can't possibly keep going the way we have been going.
I really think it's going to be okay. I know he is really nervous about it, but we're both educated and have our parents' support. I think we must accept this as part of our lives now, with compassion, and we must seek wisdom for our best response. We might have to adjust our lifestyle for the medical and psychological treatments, and I'm worried about that, especially since we plan to have more children.
Let's break down this case to consider the best way to address spiritual and religious issues in particular. So first, you might even try to stop the video and jot down some of your own thoughts about spiritual issues for this couple and these parents. So the first step would be to identify your cultural comfort reaction and response to their religion. You might ponder your own experience with Buddhism. What emotional response does this bring up for you? You might also consider your own experience with being religious or spiritual in general. Unless you have a lot of commonality with them, you might find some anxiety about understanding their experience without making some mistakes. So our awareness is job number 1. We would like to extend our hope and blessing to each of you as you increase your competency in addressing religion and spirituality in your practice. Thank you.
Okay, so that gives you a little sense of the kind of thing that we created. Jim's here now. Hi. And that we were working towards taking people from a point at which they might think, I'm a psychologist, a psychiatrist, a social worker. I don't do religion. That's what chaplains do, right? To a point at which they might begin to think about, maybe there's something here that I can address with the people I work with. So there were basic competencies going on, but some of the people who attended our training also had some basic competencies, and they were able to work on some of the intermediate competencies as well. And I'm not going to read all of these to you, but you can see like the very first one. Religion and spirituality is a diversity variable. I agree, right? Like there's still a lot of people in the mental health fields where they don't think that that's actually an important or a diversity variable at all. So working on that with folks. Our aims were to create a self-report and rubric evaluation competency assessment tool, so we created that. We developed a training for the students and clinicians, and you saw a little clip of that training material, and then to evaluate the efficacy of the training, and we are now in part D, which is dissemination, and so we're looking to continue to disseminate that training. How we made it work. We did it live on Zoom. We did 13 trainings. Each training had 3 to 15 people who attended. They kind of picked their date that they wanted to do. And each of the 5 hours was a module. In each module, there was about a 15-minute video, and you saw some of the video there, that had us talk a little bit about a principle and then gave them a case. And then they went to discussion groups for 30, 40 minutes, somewhere in that zone, to talk about, what do we think about this case? How would we address this couple who are Malaysian and are Buddhist, and what do we need to know about them? And they had a workbook to kind of work through it. So there were repetitions of some major concepts from family systems theory, and we really think that these family systems theory are especially helpful for religious and spiritual diversity training. So the 5 modules focused on cultural comfort and humility. That was the first module. The second one was on some basic research on religion and spirituality and family relationships. There's actually a decent amount of research out there. And we introduced a few things to them, like forgiveness as one. Some how to assess, like when you have a couple or a family that you're working with, how do you assess for religion? And then applications. We're not going to talk about all of these today, but we are going to do some case application together, so be ready to talk to your neighbor. But we had family systems concepts of non-anxious presence by Friedman. So the powerful ability of the therapist or the minister, even if you're in ministry roles, to sit calmly in the midst of chaos is a very powerful activity to do. It feels like you're not doing anything, but you're doing something very important. Multi-directional partiality, which not too many people know about, but this is what a good therapist will do. I hear you. What you're saying is very important. Your story is valid. I hear you. What you're saying is very important. Your story and emotions and everything are valid. And the people in the room are going, that's impossible because my emotions are the ones that are important. And the other person here in the couple or the family, right, needs to just get in line. And so it's very, very helpful. But if you think about that in terms of applying it to religious and spiritual issues, right? So people may be in different places on their faith journey or even a different emphasis in the same one. We also talk about differentiation, a sense of ego, a sense of self around that. And then we dipped our toe in, because we are Christians, Miroslav Volf's idea of exclusion and embrace, which is not family systems, but we think it's extremely similar to it, and taught a little bit about that. And if you haven't read his book on that. And then we gave a mnemonic for it. Nuns and monks dance every day, because I was trained by Ev Worthington, and you have to have a mnemonic for everything you do, other the cases. I'm not going to go through all the cases, but each module had their own case. We had, all the major religions, even agnostic was in there, people with more than one religious affiliation, things like that. This is what we found. I'm going to go through this really fast to get to the interesting stuff. We had 192 total participants. Remember how I said I would, if we get 50, I'll be thrilled. We had 192 people sign up for a 5-hour online Zoom thing. That's amazing, right? People were very interested in this, and the students really wanted to participate in it. And we had mostly counseling students and psychology, a little bit of social work, and a little bit of other things like some pastoral counselors found out about it and jumped on, and some LMFTs jumped in, all of that. As is common, even though you give them $40 to complete your questionnaires, we only had 54 people that completed all 3 waves of questionnaires out of that group, so just be aware. But we have some good stuff. So these are affiliations. Well, a little under 50% Protestant, 11% Catholic, spiritual, not a religion, 15%. You can kind of go down from there. So we had variety. We did try to recruit specifically from state schools as our primary pool of places. So this is the pool of people primarily. There it goes. This is our results. So I have to give some props to Job Chen, who I believe some people here in this room know Job. He is our research partner on this, and he ran this for us. We did a switching replication design, so that means that some people were measured, got the intervention, and then measured twice, and then the other half of the group were measured twice, then got the intervention. So what you should see is kind of what you got here. Essentially on self-efficacy, when they get the intervention, whether that's here or in this group, they got the intervention here, their self-efficacy jumps. Attitude went up. Feasibility was kind of in the middle. That's like, how feasible is it that I could address religion and spirituality? Frequency went up, which was how often am I addressing religion and spirituality? And so that was one we were pretty happy about. That went up, and it continued to go up for the immediate treatment group. And then this is a global competency measure that's specific to relationship type therapies. So happy about that. Looks like we'll get to publish, right? Yeah, that's all what you want. All right, and then these are our co-NDs for us, our effect sizes. So our best effects were in self-efficacy, and you'll see those right here, right? And then not so much for attitude, but frequency also went up a good bit here and here. So you kind of get a sense of, not bad for that. And we had 80 and 90 people that we had enough data to run those, 80 and 94. Okay, I won't torture you with more. Oh no, I will torture you with more data. I thought I had to add one more. I couldn't help it. I had to do one more statistics. We wondered if people who started attending with some kind of spiritual commitment might have a different outcome than people who came in with low spiritual commitment. And so we ran that, and there was a little bit of an effect for spiritual commitment with those with spiritual commitment kind of moving more quickly, right? Their scores were ranging higher more quickly. So there's, I think, two people entering into trainings like this. There are people who are, yes, this is exciting, I really want to learn more about this, and others who are starting in like, I don't know, let me hold back. I don't really have a language for this, or maybe I've been hurt by a religion or a spiritual group before, and I'm gonna kind of hold back. And we got some of that in some of our qualitative data as well. So that's important. All right, I'm gonna roll. All right, so let's talk a little bit about cultural comfort for us. I'd like you to think a little bit about the religious or spiritual traditions that you grew up in. In this room, there's probably a lot of churches, I'm thinking, right? But maybe not all. Maybe some of you grew up in a home that was agnostic or atheist, right? Or who were not anything in particular, or maybe another religion. And those kinds of experiences create cultural comfort in us. They set us up for something that we know all about. We know the language. Have you ever had somebody attend your church who's never attended church before? Yeah? What is that like for them? It's strange, right? We do strange things in religious communities. Right? I went to Thailand with my daughter a year and a half ago, and so we were in temples, and there's a little bit of like, what are we supposed to do here? You know, like what's appropriate? You're looking around a lot. You're like, take my shoes off. That's a thing. Okay, I'm learning. You know, you don't know things, and that's how people feel. There's a lack of comfort around religion and spirituality because it's so much you learn your own tradition. Well, the same kind of thing happens to physicians, nurses, mental health professionals, and other lawyers, all kinds of people who are providing services to those who are religious and spiritual themselves. It's important and salient to them. How comfortable are you with what's going on? Do you know the language? Do you know the ideas? And so one of our first things that we were teaching was be aware of your own cultural comfort and have a sense of humility about it. Even when someone shows up and they are my own traditions, right? So I attend a non-denominational church right now. I've attended Presbyterian churches, and I've attended Christian Missionary Alliance churches. I got those traditions down. I grew up in the church, like one of those, like we went to church 5 times a week kind of families. So I know the lingo and the language, but there are other groups I'm not as comfortable with, right, that I've never attended. I don't know, and I need to have a sense of humility as I walk in and work with others. So this resonated quite well with most people in our groups that we were working with. This thing has feelings. Okay. The next thing we were asking people about was their own religious and spiritual expertise. And this was a tough one. We actually went around about, do we want to try to teach people something about the major religions? And I know some of the other, we were part of a larger group. Templeton did a very large grant, and then they broke that into 4 groups, and then one of those subgroups broke that into about 15 projects. And so those projects came together, and a couple of those projects tried to teach people like a little bit about some of the major religions. This is what Hinduism believes, this is what Christianity, Catholic, Protestant, like these are kind of Sunni, Shia, you know, like know some of the basics. And this is not part of the curriculum of high school of America or college, right? Like people are walking into addressing these issues without much training. We chose not to go too far into this. We thought Wikipedia is not bad for learning some of the super basic stuff if people don't know anything about it. But at least having an attitude of cultural humility and knowing where your expertise sits and lies and not going beyond that would be really, really important. So always we feel the need to say this, but we have competency ethical boundaries that we need to keep, right? And so we have limited expertise. The field in general has limited expertise on how to do this with a clinical setting. And then we have little training as a field, right? So there's hardly anything out there so far on how to train people to do religion and spirituality other than the Christian. There's one Jewish program and there's one program in California that New Age. So there's graduate training programs that do this that are very, very small numbers of people. Outside of that, there's very little training in religious and spiritual diversity. And in fact, Cassie Vietin is one of the heads of this project, and one of her goals was to survey graduate school leadership and ask them, why don't you do more in religion and spirituality? Like, what's your interest? Are you willing, right? Where are the roadblocks? Where are the road bumps? And essentially the message back was, we have so much to cover in diversity training. I don't know how we would fit it in. There's so many things that are more important than religion and diversity, right? And so we need to just make sure that those things get covered, and then they'll learn it after grad school. They'll figure it out later, right? And so that was the basic message. So starting if you are in graduate education, if you are in mental health care, kind of understanding that. This room probably does understand some of that. All right, but we found that people want more. There's a quote from Froma Walsh that's very helpful, famous family therapist, famous psychologist, who said, most families who come for therapy or counseling are seeking more than symptom reduction, problem solving, or communication skills. They are seeking deeper meaning and connections in their lives. And a lot of times there's a sense that the client is wondering, can we talk about this? And the therapist is wondering, can we talk about this? And that is why Jim started that video by saying there's a rule in society not to talk about religion or politics, but we're going to break the rule. We're going to talk about religion, I guess politics if they want to, yeah. Maybe not today. Today's not a good day for that. So let's not go there. But people do want more. They want to talk about existential issues in their family. They want to talk about death and dying. They want to talk about the holy marriage that got desecrated when their partner had an affair, or when their kid decided to walk away from the faith, or whatever, right? That sense of the holy and the desecration. And everyone's kind of dancing around it going, can we talk about this? One of the things I've started doing, and I want you to just imagine for a minute, you're not at Regent University. You're at your state, professional association of some sort, okay? And then that kind of environment. Now, what I want you to do is turn to your neighbor and tell them what your religious tradition and identity is. What's going to be the reaction to that? What do you think? This is an actual question. Anybody want to answer? Tremendous apprehension, right? Even for me, I do this. But if I have to turn to a random person in my field in mental health and say, yeah, so non-denominational Protestant, that's me, right? Now, do people do that for other diversities? All the time, right? This is my identity here. This is my background there. This is it. But religion and spirituality, it's a little different. And I think that because of some of the traditions in mental health, right? It's because Freud said we were all religious people, we're pathological, and we've been living with that for 100 years, that we continue to kind of go like, we don't do that, or we don't touch that. And every once in a while, you'll still hear like a VA supervisor somewhere, who'll say, no, we're not allowed to talk about religion, right? That's what the chaplains do in the VA system or whatever. So here we are. This is where we want. People do want more. So let's do a bit of a neighbor conversation. I told you we were going to do neighbor conversations. The best continuing education includes audience participation. So turn to your neighbor and ask each other, what traditions are you most comfortable around, and what do you have little experience in personally, and are you aware of any discomfort areas for you? Go. Okay, perhaps we opened up a really fun conversation. I hope so. But how was that? So, question, how many of you had somebody sitting next to you shared with you actually have you have a pretty similar religious and spiritual kind of experiences? Yeah, for most people, yeah. So this is probably the most comfortable spot you're generally going to have for this, right? But the world we live in, think of the discomfort that we had, as clinicians at Regent University, which is explicitly Christian, right? Explicitly, like everybody kind of knows what you're walking into in this environment. Now think of the clients that walk in your office. They don't know you. Maybe they're coming in with a very unusual version of a religious community, right? Maybe they have something that's not normal, that they know people tend to be, not have positive feelings, maybe even discrimination against their religious group. And they need to say something. And then all you have probably on your paperwork is religion. And then a lot of times they will just put down Christian. But actually, I'm part of this unusual group of Christians, but I'm not going to tell you that yet because I'm going to check you out first and see what kind of person you are and if you can accept me, right? And so I think that there are some real issues around this in terms of how we communicate who we are, how comfortable we are, and making a space that's comfortable for clients. And then if you're working with families, you often get people who are in different places in their identities sometimes, in their journeys, in how committed they are. All of those things become very important. So, all right, let's do a case because I love doing cases and they're super fun. We decided on this one after having a lot of conversations with each other, with Jim and I, and with others, let's dive into the most difficult situation possible, all right? And that would be around issue of gay rights. So one of the most concerning things in the mental health field is when you do religion and spirituality, how do you make sure that people who are LGBT are going to be respected and cared about, that there's a tension there? I think the world is aware of the tension. So we want to just dive right in. One of the beautiful things about families is that you often get people who are quite different from each other who figure out how to love each other, right? And at least that's the goal. So let's give you the case. Dana has a case. Dana's the clinician that presents for some family therapy. They have a 22-year-old gay son who is planning to marry. The father is a traditionally religious man and finds that this is a desecration of the family. That's the words that dad is using. The mom is the same religion, but believes that they need to be accepting and support the relationship. Right? The therapist herself is active in supporting gay rights. Right? So very important to her. But smart enough to see, oh boy, this conflict runs deep in this family. There's something happening here, right? And it's hard. So the therapist doesn't know what to do, decides to focus on, let's just talk general communication and hope that the whole religious differences thing disappears when we talk generally and not talk about religion. Okay, that's her plan. The therapist doesn't really know anything about their religion, finds their view on gay marriage confusing and somewhat distasteful. The therapist focuses on other aspects of diversity. There is sexual and gender identities. This family is a Polynesian family, and their first language is Tuvaluan. It's the language that's the least known in the world, apparently. So that's why I picked it. So Tuvaluan, which creates some issues for the parents with their careers, right? So they have some limitations because their English is not fluent. And can the therapist really be expected to know everything? I mean, come on, let me have this, right? So now you have a chance to talk to your neighbor again, right? About this case, what are some of your thoughts? What can Dana do? If Dana came to you and said, what do I do with this case? What would you say to that person? And I know not everybody in here is mental health, and that's okay. We have some strong Christians. Just go with what you know, all right? That's good stuff. Take a few minutes. Okay, I'm going to pull us back together here and see what wisdom we have created in the room. So who would like to share a thought from your group? What is something you would want to encourage for Dana in this case? She's overwhelmed. She doesn't know what to do. What's an idea that you have for Dana? Consultation. The answer to everything. We teach it to our students like every semester. Don't know what to do? Consult. Ask your supervisors. And if you don't have a supervisor, consult with a colleague. Yeah. Consult. Yes. Yes. So number one, Dana shouldn't feel alone. There are people who know something about this, probably around her. Yeah. And we need more of them, actually, is one of the issues. People with competency kind of running around the country and available a little more. So what else? Call me. Everyone call me. Yeah, I'm not going to answer the phone at that point. Yeah. Every case in America with this problem. Yeah, thank you very much. No. All right. Solomon, you had a thought?
I was going to say the first thing that we agreed on was Dana should probably bracket her values.
Bracket her values, yeah. So there are issues when you have clients who have a little bit different values. And it's impossible no matter what your personal values are, because you've got 3 people in that family. You're not going to have the same values as all 3 of them, right? It's not possible. So there needs to be some level of bracketing, but at the same time, Dana is herself. Like, you can't completely hide that, right? But also to be able to work for everybody in the room. That's kind of one of the basics of family therapy. Yeah. Other thoughts? What else? Ev? Mm-hmm.
I thought I would like to give her as much structure as possible.
Give her some structure,
so that
yeah.
she feels like she can go in with a plan. And, I thought first thing I would do is say, you got to deal with the elephant in the room. You can't just focus on general communication and get away with it. And then probably the structure I would give her is that Harvard negotiation project.
Oh, I love that stuff. Yeah.
Getting to yes, of trying to find how do we agree underneath the things we disagree about.
Yeah, that's beautiful. All right, so to get it on the voice here, to give some structure, to say, I'm sorry, your hopes that you'll never have to talk about religion or spirituality are we need to dash those. I'm sorry. We'll mourn with you about that. But then, if you've never seen the Harvard Negotiation Project, Getting to Yes little book, it's one of the most transformational books in my life that I read back when I was a grad student, and it's really good stuff. But it's all good therapists know about this. There's what you say, and there's what you need. There's underlying needs that the family members would have. Like, so what do they each need in this situation? For instance, they may all agree that we love each other and we want a safety in the family, right? We don't want anyone to feel like they're not safe in the family, right? As a place to start. Yeah, I thought. Mm-hmm.
I teach finance.
Okay.
I am not a clinician, not a counselor.
But wisdom comes from all places. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's sort of my point. I think everybody's affected by this particular issue that you've identified as a great selection.
Yeah.
And I think to say that you're not would probably be you're willfully lying to situations in your life.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, I would approach this issue the same way I approach all issues, which is Jesus came, he loves them, he died for them. What's the roadmap that Scripture gives? If any of you lacks wisdom, let him ask God. So before I open my mouth, I would say, I would ask Holy Spirit to come and give me wisdom to understand how to show the love of Christ to this person without any precondition or judging about what I want them to do. I think the difficulty for the traditional religious man, which is a pejorative third bullet that's trying to create a certain stereotype, I think, for teaching reasons, that the difficulty with that is I think I know what needs to happen in this child's life in order for them to be accepted.
To be a good life. Yeah. Yeah.
But God does. And he's
Yeah.
pursuing everyone to get to know him.
In their own path. Yeah.
Simply start by asking Holy Spirit for wisdom for this conversation in this moment, daily bread right now, and he would give it to me.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
then I would probably tell him to call you.
No, call Jim. Yeah. What I hear in that, though, is a kind of humility. Like, the Holy Spirit knows I am not quite sure. This is a juggernaut, right? This is a juggernaut, difficult issue. There's no easy answer for it. And so being able to say, hey, I'm gonna look to the Holy Spirit to guide. And even for the father in this family, right? Like, we don't know what God is doing, kind of thing, and encouraging humility in Him, right? Like that God has His own pathway. So you have a hand? Okay, yeah. Thought.
You know, when you look at this problem, you know, as a pastor,
Oh, good. Mm-hmm.
I would want to think, is this the hill the family wants to die on?
Yeah,
Because there's a possibility that they could stop communicating
that's right.
because of their differences. This is a part where reflection about love comes in. And also as a counselor, I would try to keep the communication open for the family to continue to talk about their differences. And above all, that that aspect of how do we maintain this bondage as a family.
Yeah,
This is not the hill that I hope that this family would
that the family would die on.
What
Yeah, yeah.
the possibility that it has.
That it could, yeah. That the divisions could become permanent or very long term for them. Yeah. And so bringing that to light and saying what's deeper, what's more important, and the love and the bond that they have for each other. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. It's very similar. Ev was saying too about what's underlying. Yeah, there you're. But I love the pastoral voice in that. That would be very helpful, perhaps, in the family to be able to have that voice. All right, I'm going to give you 3 things to just walk out on, walk away with from this. 3 family systems ideas that we think are helpful no matter what the struggle is in the interpersonal and relational issues that pop up. One is non-anxious presence. And I heard that from the responses from you guys, like, it's okay. Everything's going to be all right? So Dana can get very anxious. And when we get anxious as therapists, we start doing strange things, right? And we start saying, like, oh, I don't want to talk about that. Let's not deal with the pink elephant in the room. Let's leave it all alone. I don't know what to do with this. I'm too anxious. And so remembering that part of the therapeutic role is that non-anxious presence. Differentiation is the ability to maintain a sense of self in close relationship with others. So I am not you, right? But I am good, right? I am who I'm meant to be, who I'm made to be, if a believer. And so this is a concept that this family and others can begin to work through. Differentiation has all kinds of very deep and good ideas in it, but I'm just kind of giving you like the gloss on the top of it. But really you can think through that for this. Like they can each be themselves. They don't have to change their religious beliefs or interpretations of their holy book or whatever. You'll notice I didn't tell you what religion they were. Did anybody notice that? Yeah. Or their whatever's passed down to them, all of that. They don't have to change any of that. They can be who they are and still be in relationship. I am not you, right? And it's okay. I am happy and curious and interested in you and who you are. And then also that multi-directional partiality that I introduced earlier, being partial to each person to engage fully with each of them. Naji Bajamanaji. Did I get it? No. Close enough. All right. No, there's a couple of family therapists back there going, yeah, it's close. All right. I am a family therapist too, I promise, but I just don't say his name a lot. So that multi-directional partiality is being able to be partial each person. So the pastor, the friend, and the therapist, whatever role you're in, is being able to say, Dad, your concerns about your family and about following the faith and about the wisdoms of the faith that have carried you through your life are important. I care about that. Son, your desire to fall in love and get married and create your own new family, right, in the pathway that you've taken is important. I will take that seriously, right? Mom, your desire for everyone to be happy and to not break up the family, right? And that we stay together, that's important. And I'm going to be partial to that. And it seems to them like those things cannot come together. But we have something to offer for that, and religious and spiritual tensions that come up. So that's all I have to say. It is almost 10 o'clock, and I don't even know if we have time for maybe one question or anything, if anyone has any. So, I did want to say that research is a mission field, and that was said yesterday by Tyler, and this has been our mission field, and it's been a great one. I really enjoyed being a part of it and continue to be the mission field of it. So, yeah.
I'm just interested in knowing how would you disseminate this information? Are you looking at like schools of counseling?
Mm-hmm.
Are you looking at which level are you hoping to introduce this into?
Yeah, so 2 efforts going on right now. One is communicating with professors. That's where we got the most traction in our work directly, even though we offered free CE credit. Getting classes to do it as an assignment or a class activity was pretty successful. So I've been communicating with professors and continuing to want to do that. And then, I'm putting in a proposal. I'm hoping that NCSPP, which is the PsyD programs, to go and make a presentation there about this and RS competency generally. So again, these are all the PsyD program directors and deans. And so I'm putting something together for that with a panel. That one varies very carefully. Like we have a panel, one me, one Catholic, one Hindu. And different programs, right? Because I'm coming from a Christian program, and that's an obvious thing. So trying to be very thoughtful about that and how we communicate with a larger community of PsyD programs. So, but yeah, if you have connections, I have a website for you. Yeah.
Questions?
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.